On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, we are breaking down Jags Bills wildcard weekend with Gus Logue and bringing on our man Sal Capaccio. But first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia Worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
We're doing all right. I hope I don't run into any technical difficulties here. I know I've been known for having that, but I just realized every program maybe that I have on my computer was open today on all the projects I was working on as we were starting this thing. So I'm trying in the background here to close all that down. So hopefully the Bills have a better start to their week here and are better prepared to start their show than I am here for ours here. But I'm excited for this one, Greg. I know you and I have been going back and forth on, you maybe even pumping my brakes, my overconfidence on the post-game show. I got to tell you, I'm hoping Gus can slow me down a little bit tonight, but my confidence, I thought here by midweek, my confidence would come down a notch, but I still feel pretty confident about this game. So I'm looking for somebody to pull me off that and pump my brakes a little bit.
So I know you did a great segment earlier today with Cody Alexander, obviously one of the best defensive minds in the content space right now. I did a spot with Brett Coleman that actually you guys will be able to see on the NFL's channel tomorrow. Pretty fancy.
Cool.
Brett did make me feel good. He only fed into my anxiety and fears. And it's weird because going from such a meaningless, we had the nostalgia celebration of the final game at the stadium, but the game meant nothing. And, none of our players that mattered really played, to now switching gears so dramatically to like, oh, this is now a one and done end of our season, kind of thing of, hey, let's see how many of these we can stack in a row, is just a very dramatic switch and is a tough, mindset to get into of like, oh, crap, this is like the real stuff. This is a playoff game. We got to get ready to go right now. And it's just been hard to get my mind around that immediately.
Yeah, but we're here now, and this is what it's for,
Yeah.
man. This is the point in the week where we've done the work, and now it's time to enjoy playoff talk. So let's do it.
Yeah. So without further ado, we're bringing on a first-time guest here. Really excited. Creator of the Duval 22, which I got to give you kudos. It's a fantastic name. And the manager over at Big Cat Country, our guy Gus Logue. How we doing, Gus?
Doing great. Appreciate that shout. Greg, I love your opening because for my podcast, I always open good morning, Jaguars fans. Welcome. Even if it's like recording late at night at 9 o'clock like we're doing right now. But definitely don't get this opportunity to talk ball or at least talk about an upcoming game once we get past the first week of January here in Jacksonville. So very excited to be talking about the playoffs, but very excited to be on this show too. Definitely heard about Cover One for a few years now. I feel like it's kind of, you don't really hear a lot about like other sports media companies that just cover a single different team, but Cover One's definitely been on my radar for a few years now. So it's great to be here for a few reasons.
Yeah, very kind of you. We appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate, obviously our playoff drought for 17 years and all the fun that went into that. We know the challenges of rooting for a, historically inconsistent franchise, so we can appreciate that. But, I think there's pretty genuine reason for excitement and optimism here. Liam Cohen has proven to be a fantastic hire. Some up and down moments. We'll get into some of the details on, offense and defense, but as a whole, an incredibly successful season. Just before we dive into the matchups and all the different pieces where's the fan base mind at? Like where are people thinking? I think that, you hear a lot of things about people debating the Patriots schedule and like how tough the Broncos defense is. And hey, nobody wants to play the Texans. And like, I don't hear a ton about the Jaguars, and I'm getting ready for this matchup. And I'm like, guys, this is a really good team. This is a really, really good team. I'm nervous. Where are the fans' heads at?
Yeah. Vibes are super high, especially after Jacksonville's week 14 win at Denver. So we're saying vibes were mile high after that game. But Jacksonville has won 8 games in a row, and they've just been taking it week by week. Like the players and coaches alike have been saying, like, we're just taking it 1 week at a time, just trying to go 1-0 this week. And so like that's actually like led the Jaguars kind of like perfectly into the playoffs. It's obviously different playing regular season games versus playoff games where it's like you win or you lose and you go home. And so like it feels like because the Jaguars have been on this winning streak, and we didn't know if they were going to win the division or not until last week, but we've known for a few weeks now that they were in the playoffs. So like it feels like we've been kind of waiting for this point for a few weeks, and so it's exciting to actually get there. But like I said, like they've just been building 1 week at a time, and they have faced like a pretty soft schedule this year, I would say, especially during their current win streak, and especially in terms of not just teams faced, but opposing quarterbacks faced in terms of average EPA per dropback. Jacksonville has faced the easiest schedule of opposing quarterbacks so far this season. To their credit, the last time they played a really good quarterback was Justin Herbert, and they held him to a career low 81 passing yards back in week 11. The Chargers were a little bit unlucky in that spot because they were playing the Jags right after the Jags had their like week 10 brutal collapse in Houston. And that's kind of what triggered this whole 8-game winning streak. But even if they haven't played a lot of good quarterbacks, the Jaguars have a plus 153 point differential over the past 8 weeks during their win streak. That's the best point differential by any team in any 8-game span this season. And it's the best point differential by any Jaguars team in any 8-game stretch in franchise history. So the Jaguars
There's a couple franchise highs I'll get to later that are pretty intimidating.
For sure. But the Jaguars are just literally peaking right now, to fit the old cliche. Like they're peaking at the right time. And so they have all the momentum in the world. And again, like vibes are sky high in Jacksonville right now. Literally just on Sunday, I think it was after the Titans game, the regular season finale, Trevor Lawrence went to the most popular beach bars out here and got like squatted. A fan picked him up and squatted him, and like it was like a viral video. And
I saw that video. I wasn't sure if it was AI or not, but I saw the video.
No, I had like Jaguars beat reporters were asking the same question. They're like, "Are we sure that this is real?" But everyone in Jacksonville, I think, feels like they could squat Trevor Lawrence, and that's how good they're feeling.
Yeah, because honestly, Greg, I was surprised that you said that not a lot of people were talking about it, because all I've heard is about the Jaguars here all week. Not just I've heard national media on this to, exactly what you're saying, Gus. This is the hottest team in football. They're coming in. They can dethrone, a lot of people are saying this is the path for Josh Allen to finally get that Super Bowl. And I hear a lot of people saying, no, wait, you got to pump the brakes. They got to get through this test here first. I want to draw a comparison. I talk about it all the time here on the show. My brother's a Bears fan, and I actually think Jacksonville and the Bears have a pretty similar parallel here this year. They get a new coach. They go on a run. They have some good success that the team hasn't seen in a while, inconsistent here the last few years. And they have a young quarterback, although Trevor Lawrence has been doing it longer, who's finally showing the signs that he is the guy that he's supposed to be. Both those teams also, I think, went into the season not expecting the type of success that they ended up having. So is this season, you're in the wild card here. You have a shot to go head to head with a lot of people think is a big contender, right? Regardless of seeding. Is this a success for this team in year one as is without even winning? So are you guys going into this with no pressure? Or do you feel like they have to win to justify the hype that they've been getting and how the vibes feel?
Right. That's a good question. I think it just kind of comes down to your expectations at what point of the season your expectations were, because it's certainly a success regardless. But if you're thinking in terms of preseason expectations where it's the Jacksonville Jaguars we're talking about, and they've got a brand new head coach, and a lot of people are understandably saying oh, I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is worth that contract. There are certainly a ton of questions around the Jaguars. Oh, should they really have traded up for Travis Hunter? And so that's been one of the cool things, honestly, about this 8-game winning streak is obviously everyone would like Travis Hunter to be on the field and to be able to watch him play. But the fact that they're doing it without the guy that they traded 2 first-round picks for in April is pretty impressive. So obviously, based on preseason expectations, it's a huge success. No matter what happens, they could lose 50-0 in the playoffs, and it would still be a successful season. But I think based on the past 2 months for this 8-game current win streak, they're the hottest team in football right now, and certainly their young staff, it's not just Liam Cohen, but their offense coordinator, defense coordinator, a lot of really important guys on the staff are first-time guys, not first time in the NFL, but first time calling plays.
Maybe on some head coaching lists coming up. Yeah.
Yeah. But even still, the past 2 weeks or the past 2 months have been the past 2 months. And so with those expectations, any kind of loss would be disappointing on Sunday, even if it's a classic Josh Allen Bills game where it's 30 to 33, and it's like, oh man, like maybe we're just 1 year away. But even still, like that would kind of be disappointing because again, like the Jaguars right now, like it's going to be tough to beat them for anyone.
And it's a cliche for a reason, but when they say like pressure is a privilege, like it really is. Like if to play in these games that matter and to have expectation means that things are going really well. It means you're in a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's dive right in. I'll start on my side of the ball, and you've talked about obviously a lot of the names that are there, but I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the season. And if you were on here and we were talking about season previews, and I told you like, hey, Gus, Travis Hunter is going to play less than half the season. Brian Thomas is going to actually take a pretty material step back in what it looked like a skyrocketing career. So just keep that in mind with the passing game. You would have obviously like set your expectations to be like, oh, all right. I mean, oh no, they shattered the franchise record in points scored. They've had this enormous breakout from Parker Washington, what looks like a masterstroke in the trade for Jacoby Myers midseason, breakout for Brenton Strange, and just this cornucopia of receiving weapons, not knowing who's going to be the guy each week. How big of a surprise has that been, and how much of that is maybe the development? We'll talk in a moment about obviously Trevor, but what Liam Cohen has brought to the team of being able to make it that pick your poison kind of offense.
Yeah, I think it entirely goes back to the Jacoby Myers acquisition at the trade deadline. And I think the Travis Hunter, like to use another cliche, was like his injury was very much a blessing in disguise, because if he doesn't get injured and go down for the season, I doubt the Jaguars would trade for Jacoby Myers, especially because they gave up, I believe, a 4th and a 6th round pick, which like in hindsight, it's like he's provided so much value to the team. You do that no matter what. But at the time, like especially national people were like, oh, I don't know, like in terms of like trade value, like Jacoby Myers is a nice player to have, but that's kind of giving up a lot of draft capital for a guy that's playing on an expiring deal. But Jacoby Myers has already signed a 3-year contract extension because of the dependability that he's provided. Like obviously the fact that like Trevor Lawrence has kind of a grown up and adult coaching staff now instead of what he's worked with in the past is a big deal. But also like it's more about like the guys that he's sharing the field with. When like I've always been like a Trevor Lawrence truther and always thought that he was better than like the stats bore out and that like national people thought. And like when Calvin Ridley came to town, I said, finally, like now we're going to see the Trevor Lawrence breakout, because like Calvin Ridley is like a bona fide star. He might not be like a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson superstar, but he's objectively a very good receiver and easily the best receiver that Lawrence had played with at that point in his NFL career. So I was like, sick. Calvin Ridley's here. Now Trevor Lawrence is finally going to go off. But Ridley was kind of like in a little bit of like a decoy deep role, like pigeonholed into a deep role when he really should have been in like an intermediate flanker. But instead they had him like doing kind of big boy routes as the X receiver on the line of scrimmage. And so like he was kind of like forced into the offense, and then like Trevor was forcing throws to him. So then the Jags got Brian Thomas Jr. and I was like, sick. Trevor Lawrence is going to break out, because he might not be as good of a football player as Calvin Ridley is, but he does have speed. And one thing that we saw over the beginning of Trevor Lawrence's career is that they didn't have anyone that could take the top off of opposing defenses. And so like opposing secondaries were able to like really condense the field by playing closer to the line of scrimmage. And like, it was especially frustrating to watch Trevor Lawrence, this guy that has one of the strongest and like just most talented arms in the NFL, not really being able to fully utilize it because of guys around him. But now Brian Thomas is like, he's a vertical role and he's like one of the best in the NFL at it, but like the consistency isn't there. You especially saw that at the beginning of this season when Cohen tried to make Brian Thomas like the guy, especially like the slot guy in Cohen's offense, and like really have the offense run through him. That didn't really work because Brian Thomas is like kind of shied away from contact, is a lot more comfortable working on the perimeter. So then Jacoby Myers comes to town and it's like, all right, third time's the charm, right? Trevor Lawrence is finally going to break out, and it's because a new receiver is going to come to town. And this time it's not because he's really like superbly talented and has great highlights, or because he's superbly athletic and has like great 40 times. It's just because he's a good, dependable, trustable football player. And I think that's been like just the skeleton key for the offense, because like now with Jacoby Myers kind of taking not that like alpha role even, but just like the top pass catcher role. Brenton Strange is like an auxiliary threat as opposed to like a number 2 guy. Brian Thomas is like a vertical guy that's like a playmaker as opposed to the number one alpha. Parker Washington has really broken down the second half of the season. And so, yeah, hopefully that answered your question. But Jacoby Myers gets all the credit that's come to him this season and more.
So a name that I won't lie, I wasn't terribly familiar with coming into the year. Now all of a sudden I'm very interested in whether Cole Van Lanen is going to be able to play. He's been kind of the Swiss Army knife for that offensive line. He's got like significant snaps at 4 different positions. Was playing some left tackle here. I know he missed practice today. It sounds like that was more precautionary from some of the interviews in the locker room and everything, but any concerns there? And do you expect that same 5-man unit that we've seen through this win streak could continue here on Sunday?
Yeah, in terms of Van Lanen, I'm not nervous about his availability. I think he's definitely going to suit up and play, but like I certainly don't think he's fully healthy either. Like he either I forget if he missed practice or was a limited participant.
It was officially a DNP today, but it's again he gave people a thumbs up in the locker room for whatever that's worth.
Either way, I think he's banged up, but he'll play, which is like obviously what is, you can kind of say that about pretty much every football player that's in the playoffs. But I would expect the same starting 5. Cole Van Lanen has officially won the starting left tackle job from Walker Little because Patrick McCarry, the Jaguars' right guard that they signed in free agency from Baltimore, he's also banged up. And Walker Little, who was previously the starter at left tackle, is now playing right guard instead of like Walker Little going back to left tackle, and then Cole Van Lanen, who, as you said, is a Swiss Army knife and can play across the offensive line, like bumping him back to right guard. Cole Van Lanen has won the job, which you can tell based on like Walker Little not returning to left tackle, but also because Van Lanen is another guy that the Jaguars gave a contract extension to in season along with Jacoby Myers. I think it's a great deal because like it's definitely risky, like banking on a player with like a small sample size. Van Lanen was like a former day 3 pick, got traded to the Jaguars a couple of years ago, has been like a career backup until this season. So it's a risky move. At the same time, like it's under $20 million a year. And so like if you're paying that for like a starting left tackle in the NFL, I think that's pretty solid. But even if he doesn't work out at left tackle, like that kind of money for a starting guard who can also play any position in a pinch if you have to shuffle the line, I think it's a good contract for both the player and the team. So Cole Van Lanen will be not 100%, but he will be out there at left tackle on Sunday. I think Walker Little will probably continue to start at right guard over McCarry, but if McCarry is healthy enough, I would expect him to return to the lineup and start over Walker Little. And then the other positions have been kind of the same. Anton Harrison has been a guy that like no one really talks about, but that's kind of a good thing. Like kind of the same way that like if you're not talking about a cornerback, it's probably good because that means he's like not getting targeted a lot. Like we don't really talk about Anton Harrison, and I think it's a good thing because it means he's just not really getting beat a lot. Robert Hainsey has been great at the pivot. He's been a little bit banged up this season, so they've had to like get a rookie to play at the center spot for him a couple weeks this year. But when he's been in, he's been like probably like maybe has like surpassed expectations the most out of any Jaguar, but especially when you consider like the Jaguars that were brought in during the offseason because he was a free agent addition from Tampa Bay. He's been just really sturdy, really steady hand. He was voted a team captain despite this being the first year with the team. So Robert Hainsey has been a very underrated addition to the Jaguars' interior offensive line. Ezra Cleveland is a left guard to cap it off. He's been, I think, long underrated. Like when he was traded to Jacksonville 2 years ago, and I watched his tape with the Vikings, and I was like, this guy is like, I'm not going to say he like deserves Pro Bowls and All Pros and stuff like that, but this is a pretty solid player, and that's pretty much stayed true throughout his tenure in Jacksonville. He ended up signing an extension as well a couple years ago, and he's again like not a Pro Bowler, not an All Pro. Like he'll have a pancake every once in a while, so like I won't say he'll never has highlights, but he's just a very steady physical presence at left guard for the Jaguars. And so I certainly think that like all of their run game success has mostly been impacted by Travis Etienne, even the rookie by Sheltoon, and then mostly like Liam Cohen and his coaching staff. But like still, I think the vast majority of people, including in Jacksonville, were expecting this to be like a bottom 5, hopefully just bottom 10 offensive line. And instead it's been average, which has been certainly a great story.
Yeah, the relative improvement's been huge.
Yeah.
My last one here on offense, obviously, is Trevor Lawrence. And I was living down in South Carolina during his stretch at Clemson and got to watch him actually in person a couple times. And that freshman year, I remember telling people, I was like, oh, he's good. This is an NFL quarterback. Like this guy's going to be fantastic. I would draft him right now. Obviously that stretch was right as we were going into that draft for Josh Allen. This year is the first year that I've been like, oh, that's the guy that I saw. That's the guy that I was looking for, using his legs as a weapon, finally finding an offense that really takes advantage of his arm talent. Like you said, I think one of the more underrated arms in the NFL is people don't talk about him the same way they do Allen and Herbert and guys like that. And he has a cannon just like those guys do. Just talk about what it's been like to see that kind of finally find a coach that's able to unlock what his potential has been.
You kind of answered it for me, honestly, because I've seen so many people be like, "Oh, Clemson Trev, like we're finally getting Clemson Trevor again." And for me, it's like a little bit frustrating because I'm like, guys, like he's been the same player all along. He just has like the right supporting staff around him. Like finally, it's supporting staff and supporting like teammates. But like certain, like obviously, like he's not been this player for the past 4 years in the NFL. Like clearly, like somewhat of a switch has clicked. I think part of that is Cohen, like not just in terms of like being a way better scheme than in the past. Like Doug Peterson, especially in his first year in 2022, the Jaguars, like still kind of had the goods as a schemer and a play caller and stuff. But like the predictability was just like got worse and worse every season. And especially when Press Taylor eventually took over play calling duties, it was just like Doug Peterson might've been in charge of the operation, but it was just a brutal operation at the end of the day. Like the only thing that you could really hang the hat on is that Peterson won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles close to a decade ago, but that doesn't really matter for Jaguars purposes. So Cohen has certainly done like a ton in terms of the scheme, like getting guys open, not being predictable in terms of like play sequencing, kind of like setting up shot plays, stuff like that has certainly been great. But as important has been like just him unlocking a certain emotional side of Lawrence, where like Lawrence is like, he's always been like a pretty reserved guy, like not a shy guy, but just a calm guy and just cool and collected kind of. But now he's playing definitely with more fire. And I think that Liam Cohen is the direct kind of result of that. But I actually kind of skipped over myself because like when you were saying like Clemson Trevor and like he's using his legs more, that's definitely a huge part of it too. Like, because he's always been athletic and always been able to use his legs, but he has been like finished the past 2 seasons on season ending injury reserve. And then like the injury doesn't just stop there. Like he's clearly been like not limping and stuff like that, but like even at the beginning of season, like he's like still recovering from previous season injuries. But I think now he's just like finally healthy, finally has confidence in the offense and the guys around him, has more confidence in himself, even if he's kind of always known that he's that dude and can be that dude. Jacoby Myers came in town about halfway through the season. The Jaguars asked Lawrence to start wearing a wristband, and that has helped a lot. Just in terms of like pre-snap communication, they have a lot fewer pre-snap penalties, I think, because of the wristband. They're able to like get the play in faster and get to the line of scrimmage quicker, which is especially big for the Jaguars because what they like to do under Cohen is have 2 different plays, if not 3, kind of called. And then you go up to the line of scrimmage with 1, and then Lawrence has the command at the line of scrimmage to change into 1 or even 2 different play calls. So it's been a lot on his plate, and I think that was kind of part of the reason that it was a little bit up and down. There was also like the trying to make Brian Thomas the alpha when he's really best suited as a Robin as opposed to a Batman. They were also trying to get Travis Hunter involved, but he's like a phenomenal football player, but still like a little bit raw in terms of fundamentals and details and stuff like that. And so once Hunter went out and Jacoby Myers went in, the wristband came, the schedule probably softened up a little bit, but just like everything really clicked into place. And so it's definitely been super kind of gratifying to see, I guess, to be like, all right, I know ball. Heck yeah. But yeah, I'm sure it's been especially cool for Trevor just being like a generational guy. Again, he's like reserved and like, I truly think he doesn't really care all that much about like what other people think about him, whether it's in terms of football,
has to feel good.
Of life. He's just that kind of guy, but I'm sure that this season has felt pretty good for him.
All right, now let's get into the fun stuff here. This is the matchup. I actually got the better benefit than Greg did on this one. I know the Jaguars offense is fun and all that, but if you guys are going to do something special, in my opinion, and really what the special season that you had has been generated by this defense. And I think Campanelli might even be in a candidate for a head coach here already. He's doing some really
He's
incredible.
going to be one day. I don't think it's going to be this cycle, but like
I think
one
he'll
of my
get some
biggest
interviews.
takeaways from the season at large is like Anthony Campanile will be a great head coach one day.
Yeah, he is. I think he deserves some interviews. He is blended. I was talking to Cody Alexander about this, and I'm not going to do the normal where I go through kind of player position. I kind of want to ask you more broad scheme things, because I think that's the interesting matchup in this one is, this type of mixing the Flores and Fangio together. Like they both have such weaknesses but we've seen Sean McDermott sort of kind of try to do this year because he can't generate a rush with 4, where you still have to apply some pressure. You still have to be aggressive. And he's got that background where it's all aggression. You answer everything with aggression, but then he has trapped it in the kind of Fangio shell game of limiting the explosives. And all of that is cool and it's cool. But I want to start with what really impresses me when you watch Jacksonville is, all that stuff's cool. And the disguise coverages and blitzing with quarters, all those things are really cool things, but none of that works unless you're super fundamental on the back end. And I think that is, as a unit, I don't even need to get into the individual players, but they're tackling, being in spots, being in the right lanes, getting hands up on pass plays. The pressure doesn't always hit home, but you're getting a hand in the passing lane, getting a tip ball and creating these havoc plays just by being where you're supposed to be and being fundamental football. That has to be the biggest culture change from the past Jacksonville defenses that I've watched the last decade or so.
You nailed it, Aaron. Like 100%. Cody Alexander, definitely worth checking out that article if anyone hasn't read it. One other thing that he harped on in that article, at least, is like how good Campanile is at like not doing too much zone or not doing too much sin pressures, not doing too much all out pressures. Like he does all the good stuff, but doesn't do it so much that it's like kind of a tendency breaker. He does run zone at the 4th highest rate in the league, which I think is like it better suits a lot of Jags.
I think it helps your personnel. Probably.
Yeah, but I do think that like Campanile, like regardless, would prefer to be zone based just because like he wants to be aggressive, so he wants to have guys playing downhill, being able to get eyes on not just the quarterback but the ball and being able to like make more plays that way. I think that's one of the biggest reasons for like the difference in Jacksonville's defense this year versus last year is like obviously the coaching in general and just like how the messaging gets to players and fundamentals and stuff like that, but also like the scheme of man versus zone, because the Jaguars had played a lot of man last year and just didn't really have the horses to do so. And they also like just didn't really make nearly as many plays, whether it's turnovers or just like broken up passes and stuff like that, because there's not as many guys looking at the football and being able to like rally to the ball and stuff like that. But one stat that I like for the Jaguars is that they are one of 6 teams to allow under 4.5 yards per carry in every season since 2022. And that is because of nose tackle Devon Hamilton, edges Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker, and linebackers Foye Oluokun and Devin Lloyd. Because 2022 is when those 5 players all came together. Josh Hines Allen has been like especially trying to shine a light on Devon Hamilton and make sure people recognize that like even if he's not a full-time player, because he is like a nose tackle that's primarily just playing on running downs, he's so important to the entire defense, like not even just the run defense, because if you're good at run defense, it helps set up like 3rd and longs and pass situations and stuff like that. So the run defense, largely because of the personnel, has always been or at least for the past several years, has been very good in Jacksonville, even if the rest of the defense is not good. But the structure or the secondary, as Aaron was saying, has been night and day, especially when you consider the personnel. Like it helps that they went from man to zone because that helps a lot of guys in their secondary. I think Monteric Brown is probably the best example of that. But the communication on the back end has been unbelievable. And I think especially when you consider the safety position, because the Jaguars went into the year wanting their starting safeties to be Eric Murray, who signed from free agency, and Caleb Ransall, who's drafted in the 3rd round. But Ransall had a lower body injury during training camp, and so he never played a snap. And then Eric Murray went down. He went on injured reserve actually halfway through the season with a neck injury. And so at that point, like I definitely thought like, oh man, the Jags defense is like kind of screwed, because I feel like every single week opposing offense coordinators are just going to like circle both of their safeties in big red ink and say like, these are the guys we're going after. And that is what happened for a couple of weeks. But Andrew Wingard, who's been in Jacksonville, he's like one of the longest tenured players. He's mostly been a special teams guy, but like in years like this, will get bumped up the depth chart to play safety. But then Antonio Johnson, who's a 3rd-year safety out of Texas A&M. He fell a little bit in the NFL draft. He was widely projected to be like a second-round pick, ended up falling all the way to the 5th round. I assume it was like off the field reasons. I forget exactly why he slid, but Jacksonville eventually got him, and he has not done really much of anything his first 2 years in Jacksonville, but he has been a true breakout player for Jacksonville this year. I believe he finished the season as PFF's highest graded safety, which I think is definitely like influenced a lot by like turnovers. Antonio Johnson has had a good amount of both interceptions and like forced fumble recoveries. So I'm not going to sit here and say like Antonio Johnson is the best safety in the NFL, or like if I was doing like all pro ballots, like I don't even know if I would put him on my 3rd team, but he's been phenomenal. And the Jaguars, I think it's especially interesting for this matchup because early in the season, especially with those safety injuries, the Jaguars are really struggling against tight ends and scrambling quarterbacks, were kind of the 2 things that gave them the most issues. And obviously the Bills have Don Kincaid has had a little bit of like a mini breakout, I feel like, and Dawson Knox is also really good. Obviously, we know what Josh Allen can do with his legs, but largely because of Antonio Johnson specifically, I would say, like Liam Cohen specifically shouted him out this week when answering a question about like defending Buffalo's tight ends. Was like, yeah, we used to be bad about that. Like Brock Bowers kind of torched us, even if he is Brock Bowers, but Antonio Johnson has really stepped up and been able to erase people. So look out for Antonio Johnson to like be matched up with Kincaid a ton, even Dawson Knox, and try to slow down that aspect of the Bills offense.
So speaking of which, before we get you out of here, give us a prediction. What do you expect to see this weekend, and what's your score prediction?
Well, I said on my own podcast, 34-20 Jaguars, and I'm going to stick with my guns. I think that there's a very good chance that it's a high-scoring game, like I was kind of talking about earlier, like a classic Josh Allen Bills game where it's like the guy with the ball last is going to win the game, and it's 30-33, and it's just a matter of which team is 30 and which team is 33. But like my thought is kind of that the Jaguars are going to score about 30 regardless. Like they might have a turnover, they might have like take a sack on the opening drive and like have to go 3 and out. But like this has been a well-oiled machine over the past 2 months, and they've won against different types of defenses, different types of opponents. I think they're going to score 30 regardless. And I think that it's more likely than not that the Josh Allen and the Bills keep up, but I do think that there's a chance that like Campanile's defense is able to force a couple of turnovers and make it an ugly exit for Buffalo. So I'll stick to 30-24 Jaguars, 34-20, excuse me, Jaguars, but certainly expect it to be a great game. Super fired up for it.
No, we respect it. You have reason to be excited and reason to be confident. They've been playing fantastic. And like I said, the hottest team in the league. So let's look forward to a great and exciting game for everybody watching. Make sure you check out Gus's channel over there, Duval 22, and everything you guys have going on. So appreciate your time very, very much. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Have a good one, man.
Thanks, man. And without further ado, we will switch gears right over to bringing on everyone's favorite here, our guy, Sal Capaccio. Sal, how we doing?
Pretty good, guys. Wow. Pretty good confidence coming out of your Jags guy there, huh?
That's all I know. We can kick him out here because he's not going to like what I got to say.
That's okay.
They've had the hottest run in the league. Yeah. They haven't had a lot of reason to pound their chest for a while. So you got to give them their moment. Like they're the hottest team in the league right now. That's a factual statement. They're running through everybody. They went into Denver and smoked them pretty good. There's reason for them to be confident.
Sal, I want to talk to you real quick because you're here. Everyone that I've come in contact with over the last week is very maybe not scared, but cautious. They don't like this matchup. They don't like the Jags. My mailman's talking about it. The guys at School Line are talking about it. Everybody's kind of like, I don't like this one. Greg's trying to talk me off a ledge. And I feel really confident in this battle-tested, resilient Bills team. Am I the crazy one, Sal? Because I feel like everyone around me here in Buffalo is kind of just very cautious and doesn't want to get too confident for this one.
If I had to rank the best or to worst matchups for the Bills, let's say who you'd be most fearful of or most confident in the AFC playoff field, I think I'd put the Jags in the middle somewhere, to be honest with you, because to me, the Ravens were a tougher matchup because of the way they run the ball and the way the Bills are structured, obviously. And the Titans are a tougher matchup because of how they get after the passer. And
Texans, yeah.
I'm sorry, the Texans. I said Titans. Yeah. The Texans because of how they can get after the passer, right? But this team is maybe the most complete team right now in the AFC, right? They really are. I mean, give them their credit. They're really playing really good football on in all phases of the game, including their kicker, obviously, who's great. So yeah, this is a tough matchup for the Bills. So I'm not rolling to Jacksonville like, oh, I'm so confident the Bills are going to win. I also don't think that I'm not as confident like the other guy is for Jacksonville, right? I mean, but hey,
2 scores would surprise
I get
me
it.
either direction.
Vegas isn't either. It's a close one for Vegas.
Yeah, for the last 2 months, that guy's seen his team steamroll everybody, right? I mean, so I get it. Like he's seeing that up close and personal. I really do believe it. This is very cliche. It's very coach speak. I understand it, but the Vegas line reflects it at 1. I really do believe this game is just going to come down to a mistake or two by one team or the other. A turnover.
They're living off turnovers. They're living off them.
A special teams.
We've fed teams off a turnover.
Yeah, and the Bills have been much better taking the ball away. But the one thing they've done this year that scares you is they've given the ball away on the road, especially a little too much, right? And that's what this game is going to come down to. So no, I don't think I'm confident or unconfident either way. I just think it really is going to come down to which team plays better on Sunday and has things buttoned up a little bit more.
Who was it? Ross Tucker said today that the winner of this game is going to win the Super Bowl. Did he think that the winner of this team will go on a run?
I totally understand that. We had Mitch Morris on our podcast. It's always Game Day in Buffalo. He was great, by the way. And he kind of said the same thing. He thinks Mitch said this is the perfect AFC championship game. Actually, it's unfortunate it's 2 weeks early. And that's exactly right. So yeah, I think this is a really, really good game because he was even saying, man, as soon as the schedule was set, he said, and I could tell you this too. I know every network wanted it, but CBS is like, whoa. We're the AFC network. CBS, Nance, Romo, Tracy, we're taking Jags Bills. So yeah, that's how big of a game it is.
So as we get into our friends over William Mattar Law Offices and who's here to help, I won't lie, your interview earlier today, really, your question for Matt Prater was a shock for me. I guess shame on me. I just kind of chalked it up that, oh, he re-injured the quad. We're done. Mm-hmm. That was a much greater degree of confidence than I was expecting to hear. So let us know, what you heard from him and how you think it applies to this weekend.
Yeah, me too. I was surprised too, Greg, which is I thought that it was trending towards being very iffy, and it still is because it's not Matt Prater's decision. Let's remember that. Sure. And he even said that. And we know how players are. They're athletes. They're highly competitive. They're going to want to play. They're going to tell you how much they're going to feel good and want to be out there. There's no doubt. But he used the word precautionary when talking about last Sunday. And he said, really, it stiffened up on him in the cold weather. So he needs to get through a couple of days of practice. He did not practice today. He needs to get through tomorrow and then Friday. And let's remember, it's going to be warm in Jacksonville. So I think it's looking a lot better than I thought it was too. Now, that being said, I still think you're in a tricky situation. Do you elevate Matthew Wright, and use one of those elevations? Because what happens if he wakes up if you don't do that and Prater wakes up on Sunday and it's stiffened up on him? I mean, you don't have any options then. There's nothing you can really do.
I don't hate waiting until 11:30. I think there was somebody in your mentions I saw talking about having both kickers active for the game. I don't think that's practical. I get the idea. I don't think it's crazy. I get the idea of you don't want him to go down mid-game and then find out. But I think it's that if he earns the coach's confidence tomorrow, Friday, Sunday morning specifically, and he's able to kick full go and you see him do it and he's not wincing or hiding anything, I think you got to roll with it, but you have to have Matthew Wright there elevated and as an option all the way up until 11:30 on Sunday, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think in this situation, you really just have to have honest conversations, right? I mean, Matt Prater has to be as truthful as possible with the coaching staff and the training staff. The training staff and the coaching staff have to be as truthful as possible with him. This is where you're really going to have to understand that you have to make decisions what's best for the team. The man wants to be out there. I understand that. But I think what gives me confidence here, he's 44 years old. He's been around the block. He understands the way this league works. And if he knows that he can't, he'll let the Bills know that. And one of the other things I talked to him about today and asked him about was how he can support Matthew Wright. And he goes, look, if I can't go, I want Matthew Wright to make every kick. Like I want him to do this. And he said it was great today at practice. Matthew's asking him questions. And he actually really lit up when he was really kicking it well. Like he really made, and they practiced indoors today, in the field house and everything. So I think that's going to be a really interesting decision for the Bills, but it sounds really encouraging right now.
Speaking of injuries, have you heard anything on Josh Allen's foot? I know that's been something that continues to pop up. And obviously when you're talking about this defense and we were talking about some of the schematic things, one area the Bills could find success is if that foot is healthy enough to scramble on some of those third down plays and beat when that zone coverage is in order. I think they give up a lot of scrambling opportunities, but it's not going to matter if that foot's not ready to go. Where is he at? We haven't seen him here in a couple weeks.
So he was a full participant today, which is great news. Now it's a walkthrough and it's an estimation, right? But the fact that he's full today means he should be full tomorrow. And if not, then you're like, okay, well, what happened? Did something, you have a setback or something like that? So I think that's really good news. I think, getting last week off, we all know, yes, no one's going to shy away from the fact you'd love the Bills who won last week or a couple weeks ago against Philly and have last week mean a lot more. We all know that. But we also all understand, I think, that there was a blessing in disguise there, which was these guys could get a lot healthier, and especially Josh. He needed it. You go into a week 8, you go into a week 18 game and everything's on the line. Josh is going, he's trying to go beast mode. He's trying to do anything he can. And that can only be not great for his foot or his health. So I think that was a really kind of beneficial part, at least, to look at a silver lining of them not winning against Philadelphia. So I remember against Philly, it was a week after the Cleveland game. And I remember Brownie and Eric and I on the radio broadcast, we all agreed like, oh yeah, you're not going to see him run. And then he ran like in the first quarter in a design run. Like, oh, okay, well, so from that point, I thought, okay, he is, if that's going to happen, at least he's feeling good enough for that. Now we're still 2 weeks away, removed from that. So I think everything seems pretty good here.
Yeah. I think your silver lining comment is spot on because, the Pats beat the Dolphins when they weren't trying, so let alone it's fair to assume that, hey, if the game mattered, I think they would have got that same one. Imagine if we had pushed through everybody playing, get a couple more dings, a couple more injuries, and all of a sudden it didn't matter anyways, and we'd be in the exact same seed as what we were. And instead we get kind of our pseudo bye where you got to have a handful of the guys rest and be in better position.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the names that I know got a lot of attention was Josh Palmer coming up on the injury report again today at DNP with the ankle. Obviously, I think by any estimation, a disappointing game. Aaron and I were really excited. You saw what seemed like it was about to be a really big game against Atlanta. He goes out early. Now it's been super inconsistent since then. They seem like they've gotten a bit there. Aaron even picked out about, Terrell Shavers oddly kind of got saved earlier than some of the other guys. We saw some, Josh Palmer was playing some snaps later than Terrell Shavers was. We've obviously seen a little bit of chemistry with Brandon Cooks. We know, of course, Shakir and the other pieces there. What kind of role do you think we're going to see with Josh Palmer coming into this playoff game?
So today, McDermott meets with us and he gives us the list of who's going to practice and who's limited, who's not going to practice, who's limited. There was no mention of Josh Palmer. And then after practice, we see he was a DNP with the ankle. So we're like, oh, okay. So your question's a good one because I don't know if they're just holding back a little bit, but for Sean McDermott not to have him on the list. Now, I will say this happens sometimes. I try to explain this to people on the radio sometimes. Sometimes Sean will have a name and say that guy's going to be limited and then he's full. And you're like, what happened? Or that guy is going to be.
Yeah, sure.
And then the guy is limited. And what can happen is, there's a window between when he meets with us and when the team goes out to practice. It's very possible that player could meet with a trainer and go, let's not push it today. That could happen without, before they go out there or, hey, I'm feeling better. So we'll see where this goes. I just at this point think that Josh Palmer is kind of just a guy as far as on the Bills offense. The real guy they need in this game is Dalton Kincaid. I mean, that to me he's really the stirrer that stirs the drink.
Straw
Right?
that stirs it, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Straw that stirs the drink. Thank you, Aaron. He really is for this passing offense. And for him to get, I was surprised last week he played as much as he did early on, and then he had 4 targets, 3 catches. And I think that was what Sean likes to do. And people, again, don't have to love this, but what McDermott likes to do is when a guy misses a few weeks, he likes to get him time before, to get back and get his feet wet. Even like in a situation like that, okay, get your feet wet before you really get it ramped back up. You not go back in cold against a team like Jacksonville. So I think it's a really great sign.
Yeah. I want to transition out of this segment, unless you got one more for the segment here. Thank you to our folks at William Mattar for that. Kind of in that vein, it was a question I didn't actually get to ask Gus, but you brought up Kincaid. when I look at everybody's talking about this Jaguars defense and how complex it is and how they've been able to create turnovers and that they're going to be able to get to Josh and all that stuff. But when I look at this Bills matchup, this is what gives me the confidence, Sal, is I do think that the established run game and the threat of the run game for the Buffalo Bills is a weapon, whether or not they choose to use the run game and lean into the run game at this point. They've established so much tape. James Cook is your rushing leader. He's the rushing king for the year. You've established so much that a defensive coordinator is going to sell out for this. Break that tendency. We've seen Joe Brady really starting to do this. And I'm convincing myself, Sal, and maybe I'm crazy, that the Bills haven't. They played like the Chiefs used to play as they were getting into playoffs, where they haven't shown you everything, that they are pacing themselves, knowing that they're going to get into the playoffs. This is a veteran team that is resilient. They know they can find ways to win, but they can turn it all on. They can unleash the whole faucet in the playoffs. We've seen more of this play action under center. I think you attack them early on first down, play action over center with both the tight ends, really, even get Shakir in the middle there, stretch this defense, make their over aggression used against them. Dalton Kincaid, you said it, when this passing offense has Dalton Kincaid in it, it's night and day difference in efficiency. Attack it. You don't know how long you got him. That knee could swell up at any time. Use this guy, attack him, and get on this defense early, and don't let them get you behind the chains.
Yeah, I mean, a lot there. I agree with you from a sense of, first of all, what you said about middle of the field. Totally. I think that's where you have to make your bones. That's where they've had the Jags. Some of the analytic numbers show that they've had some struggles against tight ends this year. It's not their linebackers. They're really good in coverage. I think it might be more of their safety play. You know, they're good back there, but they're not these really, all pro guys that you're.
And just the scheme where they bring like creepers and stuff. You can
Yeah. I guess that's a better way to put it. It's their sum is a lot better than their parts.
Yes.
And actually, you know what? That reminds me a lot of the Bills with Sean McDermott over the years. The sum has always been better than the parts. And I think that's the best way to put it. They're not full of all pros. They have guys, like, Joshua Hines Allen is great, right? But like what they are is just a really good group that can do a lot of different things well. They can stop the run. They can stop the pass. They can put pressure on the passer. They don't get the passer on the ground, but they affect the passer so much where they've had 22 interceptions this year. It's pretty crazy. They're number 2 in the league in takeaways, as you said earlier, Greg. They've been living off them, but hey, that's the way they operate. They're going to force you into all that. It's so funny because like you don't want to get out of character of who you are. The Bills are the number 1 rushing offense in the league. They're going to want to be that team, but they're going to have some sort of pivot when the Jags say, we're going to stop you from doing that. What I find interesting is how they do it, because guys, I remember you go to Carolina and it was actually a pretty good run defense at the time, like numbers wise. I had never seen so many toss sweeps in my life, right? They're just running toss sweep, toss sweep, toss sweep. That's how they beat them. Then they go to Pittsburgh and they run just like inside zone bounce, inside zone bounce, inside zone bounce. What did TJ Watt say? Same play they ran all the time. They couldn't stop them. What I love about the Bills run game is they can attack you in a lot of different ways, and they'll have a game plan to do that. This is a very, very good Jaguars run defense. I think the Bills will try to stick to the run, try to move the ball with the run game. Spencer Brown said something really interesting today. Just picking up on what he said. I asked him this very question. I'm like, when you do something really well, but the other team is good at stopping it, like, do you just say, it doesn't matter, we are who we are? Or do you say we got to do something different? And he said, well, you always want to be who you are, but you have to have options to go other ways if you have to. And if they start to do things to you. And he made an interesting comment about time of possession. He said the team that, don't make mistakes, don't turn the ball over. He said, time of possession is going to be key. And I think that's a clue to me that the Bills are going to want to run the ball and keep the ball, limit possessions in this game to not give Jacksonville an opportunity to take the ball away and get extra possessions.
Yeah.
I want as much early first down play action as possible early, because I think Jacksonville does so much to lean into stopping the run on first down, making you predictable, getting you to that spot to set up more traditional run later on. But the early try to break that and try to take some of those play action shots on first down when they're going to overcommit. That's when you hit Kincaid on those plays. And I think they need to find a way to thread that needle between breaking some of the tendencies to set up what's been our bread and butter, but without getting away from the run. And it's going to be a really interesting balance.
Yeah. Third down offense hasn't been that great for the Bills this year, right? Look at their percentage, but it's not, and I'll have to go back and look now.
I was going to say 3rd and 10 is oddly suited,
right.
And 10 plus.
Well, I think what I was going to say
3rd and 8 is like a weird spot for
and
them.
Maybe the numbers here. I have the numbers in front of me actually. Offense, 3rd down. They're actually 4th. They're 4th overall. So that actually is good numbers. But what the point I was going to make was when they are not good on third down, it's because they're not winning first and second down.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like they need to, as you say, just keep the ball, keep on schedule, They're good overall numbers wise on third down, but when they get in trouble, Philly, this happened big time. Like it's because they could not get going on first down. And McDermott said it at halftime. He talked to, I think it was Tom Rinaldi was doing the game. And he said, like, we're not winning first down. And that's a really big key. So I agree with you, Greg. Like, and Aaron, you said tendency breakers, right? Like do something that's maybe going to keep you a little bit more ahead of schedule on first down.
We've had so many drives like that where you get some rhythm, we're hitting big plays, hitting nice plays, and then all of a sudden, you're at the 40 or whatever it might be, and you get that run for no gain on first down
or a penalty.
And, like it before, I never worried about that. It was never because it's fine. They're gonna be over. And now all of a sudden we're immediately just behind schedule, and I'm like, oh crap! Like it's just so deflating
100%.
that we have to stay on schedule to be able to keep it going.
And that's different than years past, right? Like I think the biggest difference from this Bills offense to years past is this Bills offense can't overcome those mistakes as much, right? When in years past they could just overcome mistakes a lot easier. This offense can't overcome the negative plays and mistakes as much. When they have negative plays, when they have a sack and they've had too many of those, when they have a penalty, they're challenged at overcoming them like they versus in the past.
My last question for you, Sal, you've been around this game a long time at many levels and specifically around this team in the NFL. We do all this data. We do all this grinding on film. We try to get predictive for this game. I think something that the Bills have that is underrated, one, not only in this season, the way that they've had to win multiple types of games, to your point, whether it's different styles of run game, whether it's Josh, whether it's the defense keeping them in games, they've had to grind out and find a way to win some games that were grinding, games that maybe they should have won the way the Jaguars win, but they just didn't for whatever reason. Then you go back even further with this playoff success. And Dawson Knox started to talk about it today. Like, how do you prepare for playoffs having played so many playoff games? Like, you just kind of stick to your process. And you have guys now who have played more playoff games than many guys have in their entire career. How do we quantify that experience for not just the players that have been through it multiple times, but the staff itself versus a team that really hasn't had this kind of experience?
Yeah, I think the best answer that we've gotten from that this week is you just draw on those experiences and know that you've been in these battles before and it's okay. When things don't go your way, it's okay. You don't need to panic. Don't let them snowball. Eric Wood has a saying like, don't beat yourself twice on something when you get beat once, right? Like you make a mistake, don't compound it to another mistake. Make sure you just keep doing what you're doing. And this is what Sean McDermott means by the process, right? Trust the process of what you're doing. Because, if your results based on the first play, say, well, we can't do that again. No, it's not. Just keep doing what you're supposed to be doing and eventually you work out. So I think the best way to put it is that when you've been through these battles, and this team is battle tested, not only through the playoffs over the years, but even this year, they've had a lot of challenges. I think that really kind of toughens your metal a little bit and you understand. Look at all the fourth quarter comebacks they've had. They really handled those situations well. So I think that should give you confidence. But the playoff experience overall, I know things haven't ended as well as people want a lot of times. And those are moments where you wonder when you're in a critical, let's say, divisional round, it's late. But look, they won last year against the Baltimore Ravens when that happened. But then, of course, they lost in Kansas City. I get it. They've been through these both up and down. So I think the biggest answer is, Aaron, that what we've gotten from the players is, you keep it simple. That's what Greg Rousseau said today. Keep it simple. Don't try to overdo too much. The minute you try to do things too much, you overdo it, that's when you're going to make a mistake. What scares me, but also could be an advantage for the Bills, I don't know how it's going to go here, is when you play a team like Jacksonville, which is nobody expecting them to really make the playoffs. They're a new head coach, right? They have nothing to lose. And first-time head coach, quarterback who's had he's been in the playoffs. He has a 27-point comeback in the playoffs, right? A couple of years ago. But he's got
I think through 4 interceptions in the first half, and then a 27-point comeback.
That's right. 5 TDs, 5 interceptions, 5 and 5, I think, in his career playoffs. When you have that, it can go one of two ways. Either they get here and they're like, okay, now don't make a mistake. We're here, and they try to make the moment a little too big, or they're like, what do we care? Just go out there and play, man. They don't know what they don't know yet, right? And that could be bad for the Bills.
And there's some of that. I was looking through some of the different ones. Even some really, I'm a believer in Cohen. I think he's the real deal. But even some guy like Sean McVay lost his first playoff game. Like, it's not some automatic that just because you're a really good coach means that you're immediately
Right.
great in the playoffs. It's still a different thing. And when you guys were talking earlier with Dawson Knox, and someone asked him about getting ready for his 14th playoff game, I legitimately, my brain went, well, that can't be right. Like, they can't have played 14 playoff games. And looking like he's played in 13 playoff games already. It's wild. So being able to tap into things like that, where you have a lot of this core, Dion and him and Milano and Trey and Josh and, Reed and just so many guys who have been here for an awful lot of those, if not all of those, that really can be very valuable. And the last thing I was going to ask about was, Josh was pretty forthright in the interview about the self-scouting, about the easy misses, about those pieces.
That was really good.
I for me as a fan, that was awful encouraging to hear that he's looking at it that way. And if he now starts to take some of those easy profits, that really could set things up to be exciting.
I agree 100%. I thought a lot about that today, Greg, when he talked about the self-scouting. And that's another blessing in disguise of that loss, which was they allowed him this week to mentally not have to game plan for the Jets, right? And say, let's go back and let's self-scout. The Bills, like Josh Allen and some other guys, treated it like a bye week. Let's self-scout. Let's really kind of hone in on what we've done that we can improve on, what we haven't done, and as well. And Josh did that personally. And I love what he said about, oh my God, I looked at him like I stink, right? He's like, I can't believe it because he's missing this guy. He's missing that guy. He's making the wrong decision. You guys remember, I remember doing the podcast with Eric Turner that we do after week 1 when they played the Ravens. And there were a lot of Bills fans upset that they didn't throw the ball downfield. And Eric kept pointing out, but look at this easy money. Look at this easy money. Look at this easy money. And that's how they kind of stayed in the game as long as they did. And then they eventually had to make a few plays down the field to win the game. And I think they have gone away from that a little bit. I do think Josh has gone away a little bit from taking the easy money. And I think this self-scouting could really help him do that, especially against a team that is going to put some stress on you. Again, they don't sack the passer a lot, but what they do, simulated pressures coming from here, coming from there. You don't know. They're going to put stress on Josh Allen. He's going to have to find some answers early.
I would just set his Tasmanian Devil sack plays on the loop and just make him watch those. Like, do you realize how silly you look? Like, do you see what you look like when you try to do those? Just make him watch those on the loop. I would force it to him. All right, man. So you're very gracious with your time. Are you predicting 34-20 this weekend?
No, I don't know if you guys know. I don't do predictions anymore because of all the stuff that goes on with gambling these days and us being tied to it and me being embedded with the team and on the sidelines. There's just too many people getting in a lot of trouble for things. So I don't do predictions. I just, just call the game, and I can tell you what the line is, but I don't like to get that deep into it.
Yeah, no, good for you.
I respect
It's
that.
much better. Much better.
I just want to protect myself. I'm not saying anybody's told me necessarily, oh my God, watch out. I'm just saying that, like, there's a lot of things
smart.
you never know when the wrong person hears the wrong thing and goes, wait a minute, this guy said this and he's on the Bills sideline. That's intel. And now all of a sudden I'm in trouble.
Right. He knows.
Good for you. When you heading down?
So I don't know if a lot of your listeners or viewers know I fly with the team. I'm on the team charter, and we will fly down on Saturday afternoon. Basically, the way it works is the team always likes to get to the hotel of the city they're going to at about 4 p.m. the night before the game. Mm-hmm. It's not a long time inside in the city you're going to. It's you get there, you have a couple of hours kind of free to yourself, for players and dinner and whatever. And then it's a lot of meetings, and they do, their meetings throughout the night, and, they got to be back in for this and that. And I don't have meetings to go to, so I'll be hanging out watching the Bears and Packers game, having dinner somewhere at my bud's.
There you go, man.
Good for you. Good for you. Travel safe. Have a great time.
I'll keep it clear. I won't get in any trouble, hopefully, in Jacksonville. That's all.
Yeah. Respect the curfew. Have yourself a good time. But hopefully, we've got some couple more weeks of football left in us here.
Yeah, you got it, guys. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, we'll talk soon. Take care, man.
All right, you too.
All right. Obviously, always awesome to be able to have Sal on, one of our favorites. Make sure you check out everything that he and Eric are doing on Turf to Tape. It's been a fantastic show. I know it's got a great response to everybody, but everything that he does, we're huge fans of his work and appreciate his time here tonight. So Aaron, Jesus. You could be Eric. What do you think we're going to see
I think
weekend?
that That guy Gus did not talk me off my confidence. In fact, he gave me a false sense of confidence, maybe for how confident
You
he
made
was.
you feel better. You made you feel even better.
I won't. Yeah, I got to watch what you and Coleman were talking about because maybe that will rock my confidence. And I do think I'm just like every other fan, and by Sunday I will be pacing my living room, not confident at all.
I'll be the opposite.
Yeah.
By kickoff, I'll be ready to be. Oh,
Oh,
this is gonna be
okay.
great. We
Yeah.
53-6. We're good.
Yeah. But man, I don't know. I like us. I like the Bills. I like the resilience that this team's built, that callous that they have on their this team. Not like I said to Sal, not just from this year and finding ways to win, but previous seasons, playoff experience. I think they're a well-seasoned team. They may not be the best looking car on the road, but this is a quality car that has a lot of good mileage on it.
It's really good Buick.
It
It's
leans into the turns just right, and that's sometimes what you need to get the job done, especially in playoffs. You got to find multiple ways to win. I think Jacksonville has the ability to win a lot of games in the NFL, especially against teams that can't run with them. But I don't think they have a lot of ways to win games where if the script doesn't go their way, I think they're kind of a one-trick pony. They create havoc. They create extra possessions for their offense, and their offense capitalizes not even as well as the Buffalo Bills offense, but they do capitalize when you give them enough possessions. And so if you can play clean here, I think the Bills are going to play efficient, clean, like Sal was saying, time of possession. They've been dominating that this year. They want to, this Fangio style defense is going to allow Josh, if he's serious about that self-scouting, there's going to be underneath stuff for him to take and dink and duck and move our way down the field. And if he can do that and then convert in the red zone, I can see a game going where they'd really drain the clock. I could see it. Honestly, I've been saying Bills by 10 all week. I think 27-17. Which is crazy because I think if you limit Trevor Lawrence's possessions, force him to be perfect on every possession, he's also going to turn the ball over for you.
I think you're spot on. I hate it that in the range of outcomes, one of those games is the Jags get the game script they're looking for. They get the early lead. And one of the outcomes is they beat us pretty bad. That is in the range of outcomes. So we can't pretend that it's not. However, I think you're right that the majority of those equations and those outcomes, who played this game 10 times, if you want to take anything from Gus's stuff, it's that new money feel. Like this is new to them, and it's new to Liam Cohen. It's his first playoff game, and the majority of that team, this is new to them, and this is going to be new. And he acknowledged it, that there's some softness in that schedule. There's some Patriot stuff in that schedule. And I poked at that with Brett when we talked. And most of where his confidence is very similar to Gus's, in that they're the hottest team in the league, and they've just been housing everybody. And both of them leaned heavily into, it's a really soft schedule, but they also went into Denver and smoked Denver. And that was still very much one of those crazy turnover differential games, and then capitalizing on the mistakes. If we go into Jacksonville and turn the ball over, we're going to lose. They're going to beat us. We cannot lose the turnover differential here.
It could just be a sloppy, sludgy game where we just don't get anything going.
Yeah. So I think that it's most likely that the Bills find a way to win here. And if they find a way to win, it's going to be exactly the recipe you mentioned. It's going to be limiting possessions, controlling time of possession, limiting turnovers, taking advantage of, probably not a ton, but taking advantage of a turnover here, maybe a fumble, maybe a Trevor Lawrence tip ball interception. He's not throwing ugly, dumb picks, but you can still take advantage of one, maybe a special teams turnover. Getting just enough and putting them on edge. And I think that if you start to tip that for them, they could start to get in their own head and get worried about that. If the Bills win, it's going to be because the game goes under. I don't think a shootout is in our best interest. This team has a lot of weapons. It's not the kind of game we want to get into. They do have the outside run that I don't think we want to let them get a lead and then try to catch up, because I think they could stay ahead of us that way. So I think that if the Bills are going to pull this off, and I think they will, I think it's going to be on the lower end and going to surprise some people. I think we're talking like 23-20. I think the Bills find a way to win this. Maybe Matthew Wright is a shocking playoff hero, and we have Matthew Wright making a game-winning field goal.
That'll be one of
Colin's
kind of questions for us in 20 years.
He's going to quiz us here in 10 years. You guys remember who kicked the game-winning field goal in the wild card round, and then it'll go back to Prater in the division round and be there. So I've got the Bills 23-20, and I think we live to fight another day.
I like that. One thing we didn't talk about with Sal, and we were talking about like that mini bye week. I think something that for the Bills defense that's going to be a real benefit here is we talked about some of the guys getting rest. Joey Bosa being able to rest this past.
What did we ask for? Just get us to the playoffs healthy. Just get us to that point.
I don't know how healthy, but that extra week helps because that production fell off and slowly like kind of pop back up. And I'm hoping that the week made enough because he's the kind of guy on this defense that can make that impact play that you're talking about to get that one turnover. It could be a strip sack, could be him getting a hand on the ball. He's that type of guy. So I think that was one that we kind of brushed over with the bye week.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I didn't want to take up more Sal's time, but he was making that point about the comparison. Trayvon Walker and Gregory Rousseau are super similar, where fans don't think they're as good as what they are because more of their value comes in the run game, but they're also pretty good pass rushers too. Yeah. And then Josh Hines-Allen and Joey Bosa, different players. Bosa was maybe, obviously more of the power, and I think Hines-Allen has a bit more of the bend and curve, but more of the traditional pass rusher there. And I think but they lean on those two to create an awful lot, and that's exactly the same. The Bills need Bosa and Rousseau to be those guys to be able to come up with it. And I do think that we don't need some, monster game, but God, if we get like that Kansas City game, Joey Bosa, when he had 9 pressures and a sack and 4 quarterback hits, and if we get anything like that, man, this could be a really special run.
Yeah, absolutely. My big prediction, I don't know if it'll happen in this game or not, but if the Bills make a special run, like we all want this to start off as, I'm predicting a big, put it on the calendar, put it on producer Colin stat sheet, will be a big Tyrell Shavers game coming up in this one where he just pops off a couple explosives and the hive will never be quiet again.
I mean, you picked it out that like it's super interesting how much Josh Palmer was playing late in that game and that Tyrell Shavers was the guy over on the sideline resting with Khalil Shakir. Like I don't think there's an accident. And I think that if you told me that the most snaps at receiver are going to be Khalil Shakir, Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks, and Tyrell Shavers, I don't think you're wrong. I think it's going to be that combination, and I think that's going to be what we see from that offense.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's bring up fantastic producer Colin Ritchie, who is going to try to embarrass us here and quiz us on the last Bills Jaguars playoff game.
No, it was an ugly one. A 10-3 wild card game. Obviously, just from that alone, it's going to be ugly. But looking at some of the starters for these teams, especially on offense, and the stat leaders for these games, it's gross. So we'll start with the easy question. 10-3. Do you guys remember the Jacksonville Jaguar that scored the touchdown in this game?
Fournette.
It is much more obscure than that. I can tell you that.
Okay.
Fournette was their leading rusher, so that's the right time frame, obviously. But
I remember him like that was all they really got going offensively. That was some random tight end. Then it's got to be or something.
It is a random tight end, yes. So honestly, you can just count that as a win if you want, because I think that's as close as you're going to get.
Random tight end.
Not Mercedes Lewis.
No, he was on the team though. He had 3 catches for 17 yards in that game.
So who scored?
We're looking for Ben Koyak, 4-year tight end for the Jaguars.
Oh my God.
A total of 208 career receiving yards on 25 catches.
You could have let me guess until kickoff, like just straight. We could have stayed live all the way until kickoff, and at no point would I have come up with the name of Ben Koyak.
1 target, 1 reception, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. That's called efficiency.
That's retired.
That's called efficiency, Greg.
Yes.
It's gross. Absolutely.
So
gross.
This was a big game for one Bills defender in particular. He had 10 total tackles, a sack, 2 TFLs. Do you remember who was leading the box score for Buffalo's defense in this game?
I'm wish casting that it was Kyle Williams, but
my gut was Poyer, but I don't.
So this was Lorenzo Alexander, had one of his best
good for
games as a
him.
Bill.
Yeah, good for him. That's right.
Oh,
He
that
did
was
a
that
game.
was in a great stretch for
And that team was fun.
There was another Bill that recorded a sack in this game, and it's a very obscure one. I'll give you a hint. It is not a front seven player. It was someone in the secondary that recorded a sack, and it's not going to be anyone easy like Tre'Davious White or something like that.
Leonard Johnson.
It is Leonard Johnson.
Wow, I was gonna say Kurt Coleman just to try to be funny, but Leonard
I
Johnson's
won't
even
lie.
better.
You can confirm this with Eric Turner. I was a big Leonard Johnson fan. Believe it or not, an adequate nickel DB.
I
Before it was-
didn't
Makes
know
sense.
those
It checks out.
existed.
Yeah,
Checks out.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Do you guys remember who attempted passes for the Bills in this game? Because there were two different players.
So did we
Tyrod. Not many.
try to have McShady on a halfback pass?
So Tyrod got hurt at the end of this game when the Bills were trying to make a
So
comeback
Peterman
drive.
had to come in.
And Nathan Peterman came in and threw an interception to Jalen Ramsey that ended the game.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Yeah, that's what he does.
As has
on
been
brand.
foretold.
Yeah.
Very on brand to be a Leonard Johnson fan.
Oh yeah,
It's perfect.
dude.
It's perfect.
Started it all, really.
So Colin, we don't always put you on the spot here. What do you predict for this weekend?
I think there's so much variance for this game. And really any of the potential game scripts I could see being a realistic option playing out. I was telling Greg in the pre-show, I'm really scared of Jacksonville's linebacker duo, Foyce Adeluakon and Devin Lloyd. Those are havoc creators. They force turnovers. They're great against the run. They're great in coverage. And so I really,
stud.
Yeah. So those guys in the middle especially scare me. I think having Kincaid back and healthy could help combat some of that. And we know how good, right? And we know how good Shakir can be over the middle as well. I'll predict a 27-20 Bills win. But I think this Jacksonville team is legit. I think there were some people comparing them to Denver last year when we faced them in the wild card round. Denver had a great defense last year. They were hyped up. Their fans were pretty confident going into that game. I think the difference with this, though, is Trevor Lawrence is playing so much better than Bo Nix was last year. And so I can understand from a defensive perspective, feeling like the other side is becoming a little too overconfident, a little too cocky. I have been so impressed with Trevor Lawrence this year and the Jacoby Myers edition. We know Sean McDermott loved that Jacoby Myers edition for Jacksonville, and he helped really unlock that offense. And even if his production hasn't been the greatest, I know Greg said he was only averaging like 4 catches a game or something like that. He's helped unlock Parker Washington and Brian Thomas and Brenton Strange and just make that offense, especially in the passing game, much more well-rounded.
No, he's been huge. And I don't think it was quite the passive-aggressive shot at Brandon Beane that people are trying to make it out to be. But,
I mean, thought it absolutely was. No?
he was very complimentary of Jacoby Myers and talking about what a great acquisition it was and how much it's paying dividends. And I do think that I at least get why people are leaning into it as though it was a passive-aggressive shot at Brandon
Beane specifically, but I think it was more a shot at we didn't get that.
Yeah, it would have been cool if we spent a 4th and a 6th to go get Jacoby Myers. That would have been cool.
Yes.
But hey, we got Brandon Cooks. We're good. We're fine. Everything worked out.
We're here.
All right, guys.
I will say,
anything
Colin,
else?
that was a good pitch. You have not shaken my confidence yet. You also failed. Maybe Coleman will do it. Nobody has shaken my confidence yet.
I like it.
I love your optimism.
The magic of editing. I'm curious to see what the show looks like once it comes out tomorrow. Speaking of which, make sure you go check out the fantastic show that Aaron did this morning, bringing in Cody Alexander, one of the best defensive minds in the game. Once it's out, you'll be able to see on our feed. We'll share the show that I was able to do with Brett. It should be a lot of fun. Make sure you're checking out all the work that we have. And, obviously we're all hoping that we get a big win here and keep the ball rolling, get some more football to be able to watch. We're excited, and we're going to be here for you to break it all down. We will be here for you right after the game. We get a 1:00 Sunday game. We're going to be able to do the post-game show 4:30. It's going to be fantastic. And hopefully we're here celebrating a big Bills W.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. On behalf of fantastic producer Colin Ritchie and my lovely co-host Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.